not ready to counter the threats. That was Chief of the Defense Staff Wayne Eyre. So let's bring back our front bench, Sabrina Grover, Melanie Paradis, and Gurritan Singh. Sabrina, not ready to counter the threat. What do you think of that?
I think that a lack of defense spending has been a pervasive Canada problem through generations, and it's something that Canada needs to come to grips with on how we actually solve that problem within our population and move towards that 2%, right? I mean, certainly we're a lot closer at 1.76% than we were under the 1% with Prime Minister Harper, but that's still a distance to go. I think the biggest thing that any Canadian government needs to do, and I think that this government needs to do it now, is really bring that case to Canadians about why defense spending is so important. And I think we often hum and haw in the Ottawa bubble, and we hum and haw, in these defense bubbles about getting to that 2% and why it's important and showing Canadians, that reasoning. But we're not really taking that story to Canadians. And there's not really been a time where we've seen so much of the world under conflict and under threat, where it does directly link to the impact that we're seeing here, whether that's through immigration, refugees, or other financial impacts, or specifically looking at the threat of the Western liberal democracies with Russia. So I think that now is the time to take that to Canadians, and I think that there's certainly a case to be made to get to that 2%.
Melanie, are you shocked that this government hasn't taken that to Canadians, given what is happening in Ukraine and the fact that Canada has the second largest Ukrainian community in the world, and the threat from China, and what we're seeing, and the fact that the threat to the north is Russia? Are you at all shocked that governments, this one and others previous, but especially at this time, that nobody's made that compelling case to say, hey, we have to do this or else?
Absolutely. But I also want to note that I think that the majority of Canadians do want to see our men and women in uniform get the resources that they need to keep our country safe and to protect us on the world stage and to do their jobs. And that's not funding that they're getting. I think that likely this is an issue that many Canadians, we're patriotic people. We support our military. I don't think that they need to do a big sales pitch here. I think it's a matter of the government saying we committed to this 2% target. We're going to meet our target. We're going to meet our commitment. We're going to keep our word to our allies. Our allies are expecting us to carry our own weight here. And I think this has implications far beyond defense. It has implications for even our negotiations for NAFTA, or now it's USMCA, that start next year. Those negotiations with the United States, like what kind of message are we sending the American government about whether or not we are a reliable partner to them on trade if we can't meet our targets, our commitment to 2% on NATO, which we know is an incredibly important issue for the Americans. So this is something that has all sorts of implications for Canada and on the world stage. And I think it's really important that we meet this commitment and sure, take it to the Canadians and tell them why we want to do that. But I don't think it's going to need a really big sales job, and then Canadians support this.
Gurritan, I thought it was interesting earlier in the show when we had the ambassadors, both from Latvia and Poland, and it was the Polish ambassador who essentially said that, maybe here in Canada, you don't really sort of feel the threat every day, so that's why we understand it perhaps a little bit better. But do you think that story has to be told to Canadians as well? Because it would seem like it is a bit of an easy story to tell, and it would be something that this government could almost do, because it's not a ballot box issue. It's not like Canadians are casting a ballot for one party or another depending on defense spending, right?
This is a really interesting political issue in the sense that it's probably a non-political issue. This is something that if the government did the right thing and met the 2% target and made sure that the men and women in our armed force had the supports that they needed, they would probably applaud it across the board, across the political aisle and with our allies globally. This is something that it's the right thing to do. People in our armed forces need the resources to be able to do their job adequately. And secondly, I think across Canada, Canadians know that now more than ever, having this kind of investment is important. We have a real and live threat to Western democracy before us in the war in Ukraine right now, and this, incredibly unjust and tyrannical actions by the Russian regime. So to me, it's kind of like a no-brainer. The government should just do the right thing and make sure that we are meeting this target, funding our armed forces adequately, appropriately, and making sure that Canadians and our allies across the board are satisfied with Canada's role in doing its part.
A spokesperson for Bill Blair did follow up with a statement after he had mentioned that there are a number of things that Canada still needs to procure in order, and that will get us to our 2%, saying we will explore options such as integrated air and missile defense capabilities, a new fleet of submarines, which the Prime Minister and Minister have said we need to procure. So it sounds, Sabrina, like there's stuff that is waiting there for them to need or that they think that they have to replace, and that will get them to 2%. I almost sit here and wonder, why haven't they told that story or at least conveyed that? And even the minister had said that he has to sort of figure out on how to really articulate that to Canadians as well. Why haven't they done that already?
I mean, I think definitely to Mel's point, I just want to reinforce that this defense issue is going to become an American issue really quickly. And especially as you head closer to the U.S. election, I think that when Canada works on its Team Canada approach in the U.S., like this has to be part of the conversation and they're going to be pressed on it. I think that there's certainly a lot of opportunities to engage Canadians and be really clear about what does getting to 2% look like. And it doesn't look like this random abstract investment in things. It looks like investments in planes, in ships, in our military staff, in their wages, in bolstering actually like the infrastructure around the defense bases. So I think there again is a really important story to be told. I think this is an opportunity to go directly to Canadians and have that conversation about what does Canada's place look like in the rest of the world. I hope that that's what the minister is going to do, and I think that there's definitely an opportunity for that. It's not a hard story to tell, but I still think that, to Mel's point, I don't actually think Canadians are that easy to convince on defense spending, because if they were, we'd have probably been at 2% a lot earlier. But I still think there's it should be something that they do.